Scene 6 is really Blanche and Mitch's scene. They've gone out on a date to an amusement park, which is ironic because when they come back, it's obvious that neither one of them has been amused. Mitch apologizes, saying he knows that Blanche didn't have a good time. And this reveals a good bit about Mitch's character. He's a genuinely good guy. That even though he did everything he could to make sure she had a pleasant date, he is still the one at the end of the night apologizing. Blanche reveals to Mitch and to the audience that she plans on leaving town soon. And one can't help but wonder if this doesn't have something to do with what she says about Stanley later in the scene. She starts to ask Mitch, has Stanley said anything about me? Has he mentioned anything about my past? Has he talked to you about me at all? And Mitch kind of deflects this. He doesn't really answer this question. But Blanche says she is going to be leaving town. She'd leave earlier if she could, but she's just a teacher. She doesn't have any money. So again, you can see this in a way as her kind of offering herself up, as her pleading with him to rescue her, putting herself in the position of the damsel in distress. Oh, I have to leave. I'm not comfortable here. I don't have any money. Hint, hint, Mitch, your mom's dying soon. Maybe you should get married. This is Blanche definitely casting lures for Mitch. And like earlier in the play, when Williams contrasts Mitch with Blanche, he does it again in this scene. Earlier in the play, when Mitch and Blanche danced a little bit, Blanche was very graceful, very elegant, and Mitch looked like a dancing bear. In this scene, Blanche is, again, she's very put together, she's very well dressed. Mitch is just sweating bullets. He refuses to take off his jacket because he doesn't want to see her to see his sweat. He's very uncomfortable, so she takes his jacket off of him. So again, we have this contrast here of the cool, calm, collected Blanche and the very nervous, apprehensive, kind of socially awkward Mitch. The contrast also comes back up when Mitch picks Blanche up. And Mitch is quite proud of his weight, that he's a stocky guy, he's heavy, he's well built, and he picks Blanche up and she says she's light as a feather. Then he asks her about her weight and he asks her about her age. These are two things that gentlemen should never, ever ask ladies. Guys, keep that in mind. Never ask about weight or age. But again, this highlights the social differences between Mitch and Blanche. She's able to deflect both of these questions, but they definitely unnerve her a bit. We've seen throughout the play that Blanche is a manipulator. She manipulates Stella, she manipulates Mitch. She can't quite seem to get a handle on Stanley, but in this scene, Blanche manipulates the truth. That she does tell the truth about Alan Gray, she does tell the truth about her role in his suicide, but she won't answer questions about her age or her weight. So Blanche kind of will pick and choose the things that she'll reveal, the things that she'll talk about. It's ironic that the truth she does tell is so heavy, so significant, but she won't answer a simple question about age or weight. And this shows us a bit about Blanche's character. There are certain things that she will protect to the end of her days. She's not going to tell anyone her age. She would rather talk about her dead husband and her role in his condemnation than her weight. So again, this is a contradiction in Blanche's character. Blanche asks Mitch if he'll be lonely after his mother dies. And she says she knows something about loneliness. At this point in the story, we're finally going to learn a little bit more about Blanche's past, this past that she's held onto so tightly and she doesn't like to talk about. And she begins to talk about when she was 16 years old and she fell in love with Alan Gray. And even though she was young and there was something different about him, they ran away together. She finds out later on, though, that Alan Gray is gay after finding him with his lover. And that night, instead of addressing the problem or facing the reality of her situation, Alan, Blanche, and his lover go out dancing. At this point in the story, the polka music starts to come back up, this music that we've heard throughout the story here and there. And it comes up because they've gone to a polka dance club. I know, delightful. But they're dancing to the polka when all of a sudden Blanche stops and calls her husband disgusting, that she's disgusted by his homosexual behavior. And Alan Gray, so upset by her comment, runs out of the club. And a gunshot is heard, and Alan Gray has committed suicide. So think back to when Blanche talks about her husband, that poor boy, when she talks about the love letters that he wrote her and how Stanley has corrupted them by putting his hands on them. Blanche is carrying a pretty substantial amount of guilt here when it comes to her husband. This is an important connection to Tennessee Williams' own life. Tennessee Williams was an openly gay author. At the time that he was working, at the time that he was writing, this would have been incredibly controversial, and most of society saw it as disgusting. Williams is making a commentary here about the way we treat people who have different lifestyles, that Blanche judges her husband. I know she's angry with him and he's cheating on her, and I think she has a right to be angry, but our society, even still, is disgusted by the way people live their lives. And we, as members of the society, often feel like we have a right to comment upon the lives of others, to judge the lives of others. And we often do so without thinking about the consequences. Blanche makes this rather rude remark to her husband that causes him such emotional distress that he commits suicide. And Williams wants us to think about the things that we say to each other, the things that we judge about each other. And I know that this is kind of a touchy area, and I'm not just talking about homosexuality, but I'm talking about all areas of our lives. People are judged for the color of their skin, for their gender, for the way they talk, for the way they dress. And Williams wants us to think about how we react to people who are different than us. Blanche says that this event with her husband is what causes her to like to stay in the dark, that she can't stand the light of anything stronger than a candle. And this is an interesting comment on Blanche with reality, that if Blanche comes into the light, she has to face the reality of what she has said and what she has done. But if she hides in the dark a little bit, if she kind of hides behind a candle, she can hide from reality. And this theme is going to be recurrent throughout our play. We've already seen Blanche in light and dark. She wears light clothing, but she doesn't like the overhead lights. Instead of having the light bulb, she buys the paper lantern. That Blanche is always hiding from reality. And here we see at the end of the scene that it's not just reality she's hiding from, but truth. Blanche admits in this scene, too, that light plays an important role in her life. She says that when she met Alan Gray, it was like a blinding light. And ever since his death, she's been in darkness. So she sees their relationship in terms of light and dark, that their early days with Alan Gray were light and happy, and ever since his death and him cheating, his cheating on her and his death, she's been in the darkness. Our scene ends with Blanche and Mitch hugging, that as she talks about Alan Gray, that poor boy, Mitch scooches closer to her and puts his arms around her. And this isn't a sexual moment, but rather a moment of comforting, that Mitch realizes how hard this is for Blanche, and he just wants to support her. And again, this is another positive characteristic of Mitch, that he just wants to help Blanche. He just wants to support Blanche and be there for her. Blanche, however, makes an interesting comment. She says, "Sometimes there's God so quickly." And critics have always debated the meaning of this line. It is a really unusual line, and I want to talk about it more in class tomorrow. So what I want you to do this evening is to really think about what Blanche means here. Sometimes there's God so quickly. When you come in tomorrow, come in with kind of an idea of what Williams might be doing with this line.